Good afternoon, everybody. What is going on? Welcome as you start coming on in. I'm Nick Perro, co-founder here at Banner and Backbone, joined by my good friend, Shane Urick, independent analyst, creator of the Firebrand Project, a firebrand himself, and an incredible friend. What's going on, man? It's good to see you.
Good to see you guys as you trickle in here. Another good discussion to come today about the eugenocrats, the techno-fascists, the overconfident buffoonery that they have been running, the rug-pulling ramifications that they have rendered upon themselves. So I hope you guys appreciated that. I went for a little bit of some wordplay there. And I think it's gonna be a good discussion. I like to look at this data, this information, and I like to talk about it with Nick and get his thoughts. And I'm excited to be here. It's Monday. It's time for some Palantalk. Join us for a little bit while we get you guys acquainted with some of the latest info and how it's affecting our techno-fascist friends and how it affects you.
Yeah, so if you're new here with us, I know most of you aren't. Welcome, because we love having all of you here. Smash that heart if you can for us, if you're catching it live. And we're gonna, like Shane said, we're gonna be talking about the eugenocrats. We're gonna be talking about the Vance aspect. We're going to be talking about some failed tiers, what's going on right now. Shane has a whole bunch of really up-to-date, really good information that, like you said before the show, we should have been talking about 8 months ago, and now we are. So we're here. We're going to be talking about it. We're not going to look back that we should have been doing it. We're doing it. So Shane, I'll let you lead and drive this discussion. For everyone who's in the audience who also likes to see us for an hour and a half normally, we're only going to be here for an hour today. I am jumping on an interview with Naida Green and Disability Community for Democracy's Nothing About Us Without Us media arm for an interview with an Oklahoma senatorial candidate, and that's a huge deal.
That's pretty cool.
That's pretty huge, and they are a disability advocate, and we want to talk with them to discuss what's going on. Last week or 2 weeks ago, we did some calls for Congress, and we started help training calls for Congress. And Shane, you've done that in the past, and that type of activity is incredibly important for us to do. So Shane, I'll let you take over for now, and I will start dropping my 2 cents in for what it's worth as we go through. I know you sent me a lot of really good info, as always. You always send me really good info, so I'm super excited to continue discussing where we picked up off last week, where we were talking about some of the financial bullshit that is going on.
Did you freeze? Is it me?
And the eugenocrats and what they're doing. So take it away, brother.
Yeah, man. So, a lot of the research that I've been doing this last week has been, and I was telling Nick before the show, I'm up to my ears in all of this fucking defense spending for Europe and NATO. And as you got requested last week, people wanted me to kind of talk about NATO, America's fracturing, that kind of thing. But in the nature of that, I wanted to look at one of the most important distinctions you can look at in 2026, paper versus verifiable, usable things. The two have been so unbelievably conflated in the modern economic sense that the institutions themselves treat something that has been contracted or agreed to on paper as concrete, verifiable happening. But we know the real world doesn't work that way, right? As they love to say, facts don't care about your feelings, as they redefine facts as lies. But the facts don't care about their feelings or how much money they invest. And that's a lot of what this discussion is going to be, at least that I can bring today, which is going to be talking about what is actually happening and just how successful grassroots and their own ego has created how successful their failure has been for us. And knowing this information, you guys can hopefully capitalize, discuss these things, and really amplify the grassroots aspect of this to compound with the capital assumptions and failures here. So there'll be numbers here. I will kind of be looking back and forth just so I can give you guys the exact data and information. But and like Nick said, you hop in whenever something sticks out to you as well. So just a couple things here. When we're talking about institutions, I just want to go ahead and qualify here that the institutions generally that I'm referring to are banks. They're going to be the companies themselves. We want to look at what they are saying they're spending, projected income versus real usable information. That's going to be data centers. That's going to be the actual compute. So the term compute, if you're not familiar with it, is basically the idea of work, right? Because all information, all data has to be created. It's like a chemical reaction. You have to have compute and energy to get a given result. That is really the hurdle that all of their information is struggling with, is compute availability. On top of that, you have a second layer, which is the ability to use that compute. So your compute is going to be your data chips, your AI chips, your semiconductors, all of those things that go into the tech itself that's running the AI. And then, of course, for that to work, you need to add energy to that, which is the fundamental power grid, everything that goes along with that. So with kind of that up front, I want to talk about a couple of these things that are standing out in the comment here. If you want to simplify it, inputs is the energy, compute is the reaction, data is what we get out of there. And this is really all about data and processing. So first thing to really consider here, in 2026, we were looking at potentially the projected availability of AI data centers was 16. Okay, 16. It's an important number here. We have only seen 5 of those materialize, 5 of 16. So we're looking at less than a third of the projected data centers that are supposed to be functioning right now to support this AI boom that has trillions of dollars invested, over $1 trillion invested, is only a third of that has materialized. So you can already say that all of the investment is operating on at least only a third of what is supposed to be there already. So just that alone, we're looking at, holy shit, right? Like, how can you possibly balance that? At that same time, we have of all of these GPUs, and the GPU is what runs the AI, it's essential. They're only utilizing 5 to 15% of the available GPUs. That is ridiculous. That is crazy, because it's not only that they have GPUs, they can't use them, which is just another kick in the balls for these guys, right? So the way this translates is you have $500 billion that have been allocated to AI servers, right? So that is, let's just say, for simplified, the band of liquid/invested money into server capacity, 82 to 88% of that is sitting idle, of $500 billion, right? So they can't use that. That's invested, but they don't have any compute energy to use that. Again, this is just absolutely, I mean, if you're running a business, holy shit, your boss is kicking you in the balls. Can you imagine, Nick, if you were designing Alexa and they came to you, you went to them and said, hey, have 82 to 88% of my budget that I can't use because of the system that I built. It can't handle it. How would that go over?
I'd probably get fired
Right.
if I
Yeah.
said something like that. But also, it would be you wouldn't go live with something like that in a resource. Like there is a minimum level of project that needs to be available for it to be usable and sustainable, and they've this is all creating its own artificial bubble is all it
Yeah.
really is.
Totally.
That's good comment, Francis, in the chat. It's a propped up industry. it
Yes.
is it is built on a bubble that is going to collapse, because just like the dot-com bubble collapsed, it happened.
Yeah.
And we had a huge financial crisis because of it, because they just ran away with buku amount of money, and they're
Yeah.
doing it again. And this time, however, we have the opportunity to call it out publicly and continually, so that when it does pop, it is not us who are left with the bill. It is those who created the bubble that have to fill that void of capital and return those assets.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Me and Nick are both of the opinion that reparations are due for what has been taken from the middle class by these people.
From the middle, from the low, from
Middle, all classes. That is
all
not
classes that
one.
are not the pedo class. Like everyone outside the pedo eugenics class, almost everyone deserves reparations at this point. It is the abundance of human resources, water, knowledge, fuel, all of it that are being stolen from us. And it is a new form of redlining. I think we need to, I'll put that out there too as part of this, is the financial incentive for these people to build these centers is a form of redlining that is being set up, that is not being talked about, because it is only in communities that are suffering, marginalized, more marginalized than most, where these centers are being built.
Yeah.
And part of the issue for them, I think their capital is locked up right now because people are pushing back, because
Yeah.
people have said, and states and tribal groups and regions of the country have said, no, we will not allow these to be built without further understanding. And I think that's part of where their 80 something percent of our capital is locked up and we don't have the processing power. I think they're lying on those numbers that it would be 80% of their, I think they just want more so that they can continually build more, because I use Claude for a lot of stuff right now for support, but I use it as a tool. It is not something that does my work for me. It supports building my work and growing my work. It works fine. What 83% are we missing? Like,
I think it's the
I think they
83.
need to answer the question of what is that 83% that we're actually missing, or
And I think,
whatever 80% is bullshit that we're
yeah,
missing here. What is it? Where does it go?
surveillance of the population.
Yeah.
That's what it's for. That
Yes.
is what all of this was for. It was to surveil us at scale. Um, and the thing is, they can't pull what they have to surveil us because their entire capital base is based off of these platforms. If they shift to the government and working as a surveillance network, they lose the backing. The only profitable part of this entire venture, which is the public sector, which they have built into aggressively every fucking sector you can imagine. Everything has AI, even though it's literally, you don't need AI on Chewy. Why do you need Chewy AI to order dog food? It all just goes back to this aggressive push into every area they can to just try and get some revenue, because all of them, for the most part, are falling short. And not only that, the horizons themselves for them even being in a position to grow and scale is very, it's not there. And that's a lot of this too. Beyond that,
So before you go any further, let's touch a little bit on this section, because this one's really important. The surveillance aspect and the compute levels. Is I want to ask you a question around wearables and how that fits in to the AI data collection and surveillance modeling system, because there was a I was informed of an incident over this weekend that had happened a couple months ago. I wasn't aware of it, but it was around a creator wearing meta glasses during a live and the privacy concerns that those bring up. And we can talk about it. This individual wore those glasses. Their name is Chris Armitage. I am not attacking anyone. This is not me. Don't go attack. Don't go attack Chris. This is not about attacking Chris.
Correct.
He did something that he should have known better to not do. I will speak up because it's my platform, and Shane, you can back me up or counter it if you want. And it was without consent. And it very much could have impacted in a really negative way the creator that had it done, because the data collection and the passive data collection that meta glasses do and those types of surveillance technology do, we don't know. We don't know what happens. I will say, only because I still follow Chris. I follow what he's doing because I tend not to block folks unless I really need to. And Chris responded to me, and he also put out a very long message and a very long post about what his organization is going to do about it in response, which is they're proposing actual legislation that can be brought up at the state levels to ensure that there are changes to the devices so that they are always visible, that if it is on in any way and recording and capturing data in any way, that it has to be very, very visible. And can be seen and known by those around, as well as the requests for consent if somebody was captured in a video and having time to discuss it. It's worth reading his post. Whether you agree with Chris or not, whether you agree with the things he has done or his lack of understanding and his lack of care and concern about the privacy of others and what the implications of wearing surveillance tech really could have. I wish he had known. I wish he had understood and met this moment. And I think he did not meet the moment in wearing those glasses. I think it was really disappointing to see.
I'm not familiar. So
yeah,
could you fill me in with what exactly?
Yeah. So he was on a live. He did not get consent to put on meta glasses or glasses with a recording device by the other creator. He did not turn them on. What he has said is he did not turn them on. And that being said, he had then acknowledged that the fact that he wore them was the issue, not the fact that they were off or on, but the fact that they were worn is the issue. And that is something he will never do again. He will never be seen in a live. I think that is only step one of what needs to be done on situations like that. Is you should not wear those glasses ever, because they are part of a passive to active surveillance system. And there is no reason you need to willingly be a part of that. I am not covering for Chris. I do not care. It is Chris's mess to fix. It's Chris Armitage's mess to fix, not mine.
Oh yeah.
He wore them. He's a big boy. He can, if he's going to take full ownership, that is important. If he's not, then that is also important. Yeah. The next step that he did is an important one, is this legislation that is being proposed by his organization in response to him fucking up. His response is, okay, We screwed up. Let's put out real legislation that can fix this. Let's put out legislation that can be made. What's up, buddy? I'm literally talking on a live. Can you wait? Okay. Mommy just walked in the door.
No, she didn't give me any suggestions.
Okay. I'm in a live video, dude.
So-
Bro,
Sorry.
please stop. Walk out of the room. It is not okay what you're doing right now. Thank you. Anyway, I think it's very important that part of the end result of this is legislative change.
Yeah.
That is really necessary. And I don't believe that it's enough because the action happened. And we need to, that said, I think the legislative change is a very, very strong step of saying, I recognize I screwed up, and here's a real fix so it can never happen again. I think that is a real powerful impact. I want to ask, but I don't want to get stuck on the Chris Armitage part. I don't want to get stuck on that discussion. That is its own conversation. And that's not what we're here to talk about for Tech and No Fascism. I want to talk about the surveillance aspects of those classes and what you think the need, does it tie into the need for these compute resources? Because wearables are becoming much, much, much more prevalent these days. And wearables with cameras and recording devices are now common. And so how do you see that playing into this capacity, and what the surveillance state of compute is?
Yeah, I think that there's a couple important aspects to this. I also want to add the Quora rings, which are, as well as like period tracking apps, tracking your menstrual cycle, things like that as well. All of these come into basically the general idea there being that all of these things play into this wider surveillance system, which is to get personal data, actionable data on the individual, particularly with this kind of meta glasses and things like that. Dealing and processing video is an extremely intensive activity. Okay, so something like that is going to require more compute than per se just an AI prompt, right? The scaling of difference between the amount of compute that goes into that versus, something like a Quora ring, which is tracking, maybe a smaller amount of data, just a little update, things like that. But what I want to say is up front, you read the terms and conditions of those meta glasses. When you put them on, you wouldn't want to wear them. This just all goes into people buying into this idea that you can just put these on, and this company definitely won't do something like take that information and give it to a surveillance state. It does take additional compute. Each action requires more at scale. And if they want to take all of the meta glasses, then and sort that information, then they need to scale up. All of this requires more work. It is very, very much so something they can do. But even if everyone was wearing meta glasses, they'd have to do a lottery to see who are we scanning. They would probably use other information, right? Because they're going to say, well, this person has meta glasses and I'm also tracking, their Quora ring as they drive around, and I have flock cameras, and this is a person of interest to me. I'm going to go ahead and pull that data. But go ahead.
And a build on that is I want to make sure we are very clear on the discussion around this. This is about the surveillance aspects and the data privacy issues, and not about the ability for these types of wearables to be used, because Naida, you bring up, our friend Naida Green brings up a really good point, is these types of wearables benefit the disability community, benefit those who have visual disabilities and hearing disabilities. It also benefits people who have, it's an accessibility thing. It benefits people who have heart conditions or need more precise tracking. What my goal is in these types of conversations is that we don't just target the wearables or the tools that are available, because the tools themselves, I worked in health tech. Like, I understand exactly the importance of health tech. That was I started my career on the Alexa Health team and spent years writing. I Through the whole COVID thing, I helped build the app for accessibility with karaoke style screen reading, both visual and non-visual aided side. And there's a lot of importance of health wearables. It is a really, really big and valuable area. And we do not have the data privacy laws in place for folks with disabilities. My son's having, he's just hungry. Give me just 1 second. Let me close
Yeah,
my,
no worries.
I'm just going to close my door so it's a little bit quieter.
Cool. Yeah, I would say that, with all of these things too, he's doing, particularly pertaining to health, and those with disabilities, what HHS is doing, their targeting of records of these people, these kind of platforms in general, just the overall health push of AI into health, with the total lack of regulation that AI currently has. And pretty much government zero discretion as to enforcing your own privacy, and the use of that data, the Consumer Protection Bureau's annihilation, all of these things come together.
All of this came together because they overturned Roe v. Wade, which was a privacy policy, was a decision about privacy. They made it about abortion so that they could overturn it. But the decision itself is fundamentally about privacy and how your data could be used and accessed. And we lost that. And we live in a world right now where those who own the infrastructure don't believe privacy is a thing for anybody but them. They don't want privacy for anybody else. I want health wearables that somebody is comfortable to use, knowing that their privacy is always maintained. Not just the person wearing them, but the people around them too. And how that privacy is maintained through the entirety of your data transmission, and how your data is owned by you and not the surveillance network. That would make a huge fundamental shift in how we could actually talk about wearables. But we're not there yet because we need the laws behind it to actually implement this type of corporate restriction so that they can't harvest and steal your data. Because when I worked at Amazon, our biggest priority on our team was maintaining anonymity, pseudonymized data, which means it is identified by a key, but there's no traceable back to an individual. Like, it strips away personal identifying information, and it is very secure. Those laws aren't on the books right now anymore. Those laws have been taken and broken up, and the states need to start doing this first, and then the feds need to follow.
Yeah.
But so when we talk, this is a very holistic conversation, and Naida, I super appreciate you bringing this forward. You're right. There is no express mention of privacy in the Constitution, Susan. That is a great point. There needs to be. Yep. That could be amended. We have a constitution where the first thing we did once we ratified it was we put in 10 amendments called the Bill of Rights.
You could make
You
an
know,
amendment.
we can make more of those. We can really make more of those. Like, privacy is an unalienable right.
We could
that
make
should be in there. We can do it.
We could make a for those of you who maybe are not familiar with all the video games, you know, you will make a save and you can save a new game, or you can overwrite save and save over the top of that. We could just make an amendment that says we're going to overwrite this particular version and we're going to draft a new one. And that could be an amendment. We could just say, let's do a V2. Boop. A couple votes. 2/3 of the state ratify. Even if we can do it, the mechanisms are there. The fourth branch of government that me and Nick have talked about a lot, that's an amendment away. These are not outlandish things. And yes, in my opinion and Nick's opinion, your data is part of you. It's inherent. It's part of your body because it comes from you. You don't have that data without you. If I don't exist, that data is not available.
And we have the power right now with current technology for digital data privacy and digital data ownership. It's called NFTs. The crypto bros actually did one good thing. They created non-fungible tokens, which are things that are unique, cannot be recreated without altering. There are key tags that you cannot backwards create. They're very secure, and you would own it. My vision of data privacy and data ownership on the internet is you own all of your data, and when you want to share parts of it, you can enable that. And if you don't, you turn it off, and they have to delete it. They don't get to keep it because it's yours. You have said no. It's not a far-fetched idea to get there either. It's not an easy thing to resolve because it will take time and it will take huge effort to do. But it is also a really important thing that could be resolved without without any new technology. We're there to do that. We have the ability to do that. That could be the next step of our internet, is ultra secure data privacy. And in America, in the States, where we have the fundamental power to change it eventually, and when I say eventually, I mean like soon. Promptly is we need to actually be speaking about it in the terms of constitutional amendments, rewriting the Constitution, reevaluating what unalienable rights mean, and putting them down on paper and then enforcing them. But the first step is we actually have to talk about constitutional amendments for data privacy and these sort of things. This links back into the surveillance. I know I sidetracked us a little bit, but I think it's really important in this conversation.
It's relevant and important. So
yeah.
Okay.
Thanks. So I think this was a really good piece for us, is we need this data privacy because the surveillance infrastructure is being built right now, and we have
time right now to put in things, which is a blessing.
Ahead of time. Yeah.
This is not something that we per se should have had. It's because they're dumb as hell that we have an opportunity to stop them before they get ahead. And that also stopped all of the adverse effects of 16 mega or data centers that would have appalling effects on Americans' quality of life. It would contaminate and kill people, which Elon Musk's fucked up data center in Tennessee is already doing. Like PBS Terra did a really good YouTube video on that if you haven't seen, you should go watch, where they collaborated with an independent investigators, got drone footage. You're able to see just the fucking pollution that is just being, mind you, predominantly put on minority Black neighborhoods in Tennessee, and the adverse effects of that, obviously, on those people. is already kind of starting to materialize. But a blessing. It's a blessing that I get to share this information with you. But it's only helpful if we can take advantage of the moment. Yes, things in November look like they're going in our favor. Yes, generally they are having a harder time. But major caveat, it will not last forever. It could be years. They could
And we
fail
have,
out.
yeah, we have to be opportunists.
Yeah. They could also pull some shit out of the bag. Like they're pretty much colonizing Latin America again right now. What does it mean when they fully capture every single Latin American country, short of maybe Brazil? But they just got Colombia. They have Peru, Ecuador, Chile, Argentina. Yes, it's a fucking thing. The CIA has been busy, let me tell you. But again, we're lucky that the people there are not interested in being colonized again. Another blessing when people actually resist at scale to these kind of governments. More lucky moments. Unfortunately, yes, in Peru as well, they're doing this whole war on drugs thing and the U.S. militaries, and it's all Latin America is its own problem. Like we could talk about Latin America for a long time, but we don't have time to do that today. It's something I could talk about in the future. Make sure you vote on my things. Leave that. Maybe I could do that, but I want to just kind of stay focused on some of these numbers because this is kind of one of those things where just the numbers will kind of help understand the scale, right? So, just to kind of rehash some of the things we talked about earlier, between 30 and 50%, yes, a 20% margin of error. I'd say I'm just going to be realistic. I'm leaning more towards the 50% based on the data center, just actually the ones that exist. 5 of 16 is about 33%, closer to, 30, 36 something percent. So, these are facing delays or cancellations. And the trend of quiet cancellations is very much a thing. But the cancellation doesn't necessarily mean that all that money comes back right away. So that's one of the things to consider. The major constraint here is not chips, which is unstable. It's not the construction itself. It is the power grid. So it is the amount of power required for the compute. And despite their ability and efficient dismantling of the EPA and the regulatory roadblocks that they have, they created a pretty much one of the only and yes, they need water, but they got rid of the rules to protect your access to clean water. That's not an issue. It's they don't even have the energy because China provides everything we use to fucking build everything, including the steel that goes into transformers and all of the things that actually power that, right? So the grid is running 3 to 5 years behind. And that's assuming we have access to Chinese materials at all. We are not looking at being able to quickly turn around and be able to make this specific kind of transformer steel, which was added to Chinese controls at the beginning of 2026. There is the November Busan Rare Earths Treaty that was from last year, which was to stave off pretty much the full-blown execution of the United States wartime economy, AI data center buildup, all of those things. Interesting in November, I'm curious to see how that works out surrounding Taiwan. It's some pretty good leverage, but I digress. So we are also going to kind of talk about the GPU utilization. I said earlier, a lot of these data centers are using far less than 50%, in some cases 5%. some running at 15 to 25%. And that's basically directly, we're going to call that the compute. Okay. So they're computing at that percentage of scale, which is not enough. And if they're doing, like Nick said earlier, all of this stuff domestically in terms of the economy, business, cloud code, things like that, at 5%, you have to ask the question, why the hell do they need so much? And of course, we talked about earlier, that compute is for large scale surveillance. Why else would Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, Zuckerberg and all of these people be so interested in incorporating their companies into the security surveillance homeland apparatus? We're already seeing limited use in ICE, DHS, things like that. So that is really a huge roadblock for them. CapEx, basically capital expenditure. These hyperscalers, what basically trying to grow rapidly. They've got about a little more than $1 trillion capital expenditure, and that is outpacing dramatically their actual liquid cash. So this is translating into a lot of borrowing. So again, you can invest $1 trillion in something, but you don't, that's it. You invested $1 trillion. You still need people to build the thing you want to build. You still need to get the materials you need to build that thing. You need the people to work and pay those people to do those things. Right now, you just have a bunch of money set aside for something that only 5 of 16 of those this year has materialized. So you can imagine that backlog is going to grow considerably. Everything is projected these days. It's all 4 years out, 2 years out, 4 years. It's all the same shit. So when we're looking at chips, right? So, Broadcom is just one of these monitoring websites, economic monitoring websites. They were, we said, so basically AI chip guidance was 16 billion, but the expectation was $17.2 billion. Right. So we're seeing these companies saying we're going to make X amount of chips, and they're even falling short there. They're not even delivering on these massive orders. And that's obviously going to shake the market. Broadcom lost 14%.
Which also, it's probably not being reported in any of this, the slowments of ship or the slowdown of shipments and rare earth minerals through the Strait of Hormuz and areas in Southwest Asia and Northeast Africa. Those aren't moving, and those shortages are going to further impact chip production and slowing of that.
Massive typhoon affecting U.S. territories. I pity the people there and the lack of support they'll get from the gutted FEMA and all of the other basically destroyed institutions. That's going to potentially hit Taiwan. What does that mean for chip production? Like, nature doesn't give a shit about how many chips Oracle has on order. Like, these are all things beyond the geopolitical ramifications. The entire collapse of our climate due to the reckless suppression of science, war on intellectualism by oil and gas companies, as well as our fucking government, has created a situation where the entire world is entirely unprepared for what is coming. Particularly our global trade. There's things we can't even control that are going to affect production beyond just the political and economic ramifications. So beyond that, all of those things, we have to consider what else is going on, because nothing happens in a vacuum, particularly on our planet. So we saw the NVIDIA data centers, their revenue reached 194 billion. That's up 68% year over year. But that's just that's only 2 customers represent 36% of that though, right? So we're heavily dependent on probably Google or Meta. I don't know who exactly that is, but it's one of 4. It can't be that many. So, we continually are seeing this build out, this scale, but these revenues are far, far beneath what they've spent. $168 billion is nothing considering what they are actually expending, right? So your revenue, your profits to earnings is abysmal. And there's a reason I think that they're trying to do things like remove quarterly reporting mandated by the SEC and things like that, because they really don't. There's no good way to suppress these numbers. They're super bad. The other big thing we're starting to see is they are starting to move away. So the banks are saying one thing, but they're acting another way. And this is one of the best ways to actually discern how the economy is doing, is the banks always fucking lie. Oh my God, it's ridiculous. I mean, you read something by Goldman Sachs, sure, you'll be informed on who's manipulating the market, but you won't actually be informed on what's eventually going to happen to the market. And banks always hedge first. Always. They will always move things. And then only after they've moved and positioned themselves will they start to talk about what is actually happening. So a lot of AI borrowing is transferring away from public to private borrowing. And that is now reached about $300 billion, to the point where we are starting to see the Financial Stability Board. This is a international institution, among others, actually talking about this, saying that this is a genuine, potentially it is a genuine threat to global economic stability. It's gotten to the point where, an informed investor has to consider, right? People with money have to consider losing a lot of money. And those people will eventually start to talk about this. And once they start to talk about it, even the Chicago Fed starting to, talk about these things as the direct expenditure on actual public banks borrowing is low, because they've started to do this thing where they're just internally borrowing in circles from each other, or they're borrowing from private investors, hedge funds, things like that, because they need to keep this black hole running as long as they can, in the hope that something will resolve itself as they continually, dig this hole. So private credit is surging while the public banks are scaling back. That is that's telling us that the banks are not necessarily comfortable investing in this, which should be a tell for everybody. Like, these companies are exceptionally vulnerable right now. And the level of, and Francis saying here, hedge funds are dumping AI stocks. They have to, because there is eventually a wall that will come. It will come. You can't run away forever. And they just had so much money to run away with. But again, the world is more fucking paper than it is real. Like, a rock is real. You can pick up that rock. That rock, you can throw it at Peter Thiel's noggin and give him a big bruise in the middle of his head. You could. I'm not saying you should, but you could. Okay? That rock can make a direct impact. A signed document saying you're allocating $1 trillion of borrowed money that no one actually has, created out of thin air, because you can put up collateral stocks that you can't touch, you can't use, that are based on another vague ass fucking IOU, based on the existence of that debt, which is based on the existence of the other debt that you put up as collateral, based on the existence of other debt that was created out of nothing, based on collateral, based on future value, because the actual market itself couldn't possibly hold this much money. How on earth does Elon Musk lose $350 billion in a fucking week? There's no way that money exists. It's too much. $350 billion just disappears? No way. Unless it never was there in the first place. And that's the kicker. That's where we go with all of this. There's no, it's ridiculous. And as we get into this, not only this, the money they had to build out this whole thing would have been fake anyway. It's all fake. Even my whole week, I've been looking at European defense spending and all of these things and the money that goes into building out these futures, billions and billions and billions of dollars of nothing. There's nothing there. That is, I guess, if you're taking away one thing, what they tried and actually can physically build, they can't. They've failed. They're failing. And if people put up more pressure, they will fail more. They are not going to hit their 2027 targets because they can't hit their 2026 targets. They're certainly not going to, it's not going to get easier because they're already seeing legislation. Popular support for AI is plummeting. Young people, Gen A and Gen Z, the people who they need to like AI, are starting to dislike AI. It has a very negative connotation now. For the most part, all of these apps, all these things are losing, it's all going to shit. It's all going to shit. And the numbers say so. The numbers say that they are not doing as well as they want you to think. So just in deployed AI infrastructure, the amount of capital they have at risk is about $500 billion. Okay. They announced they wanted to have 16 gigawatts of energy that they had allocated for in data centers. Of that, 11 gigawatts has yet to manifest. That's effectively the same as that data center, right? Private banks, bank private exposure is about 300 billion, meaning that a lot of this borrowing is moving to opaque offsheet, basically trying to get this vulnerability or this overinvestment out of the way, make it so it's less visible to the public to prop up their position. The amount of hyperscaled debt is over $1 trillion from 2025 to 2026. $1 trillion in 1 year. 1 year is just absurd. Absurd. What a foolhardy, stupid, market bombing bunch of idiots. Palantir alone is looking at a 535x profits to earnings. And mind you, that is 54% dependent on the government. So if the government, per se, Congress in charge of the purse, decides to cut funding, that company collapses overnight. Well, that company, Palantir's invested a ton. And just even farther, to take this farther, these same elements apply to crypto, which they invested in heavily, which was their plan. Crypto at 120,000 October of last year, now sitting at around $60,000 as of current, I believe. But we've seen just again, and this is important, Bitcoin needs compute. Okay, so coins are mined. They're mined. So when I was a kid, the whole thing when Bitcoin first came out is I could get an app on my phone and I could tap and I could mine tiny bits of Bitcoin because the way they needed to make it was compute. So you could use your compute on your computer to make a small amount of Bitcoin. And that is how that worked. Now that compute is competing with AI, which is driving up the price of energy, which is also driving down the value of their other major hedge investment, which further imperils another huge part of all of the capital that has been funneled out of the markets into a now extremely vulnerable position. Think about how much money that they put into Bitcoin and how much of that was lost, right? That translates and that value is lost. It's paper money, but they treat it as real. So the effects on the economy are going to be functionally real. Once the reckoning occurs, you can get, I guess, an idea of how much is real, but they are still pushing this down the road. And I guess that's kind of,
before you jump into that last part, I've got to drop, but you don't, Shane. You control this too. So if you want to keep going, absolutely continue your discussion on this. I've got to drop for my next interview for our Oklahoma senatorial candidate, Jasmine Thomas. I'm excited for this. This is going to be really good. Thank you, everyone.
Over there to watch as well. So hopefully we'll finish up here, guys, and then we'll be able to all go over and watch Nick's interview. Make sure you subscribe to Nick. Sick of this shit, all that good stuff. I'll put up the QR code
All right,
as
brother.
well.
I appreciate you. Thanks,
Yeah,
y'all.
for sure.
Have a good afternoon. Shane, I'll talk to you again soon, brother.
All right. Sounds good, brother. So, just to wrap up here with everybody, we can kind of look at this in a couple ways. But let's wrap up with, I would say that the AI investment itself it's not that it's fake. The investment is real with fake money, in my opinion, but that's my opinion. People might disagree with me. They might say if the demand is there, then the money's there. I don't really think that's how that works, but so be it. It's the fact that there is not enough physical inputs themselves to actually really do much at this point with that money. Exactly, the returns are in question. There will be, it's very much so whether or not these returns will materialize at all. And that's what I think, if you want to take anything away today, would be that that is the big question here, that they are, that there is no easy out for them, and that this hole they've dug is exceptionally deep, and that we're not really going to be seeing that materialization in the near term. That doesn't mean in the long term it will not reassert itself. So that just really amplifies the importance of making sure that everyone is engaged with this and everything that goes into that. So that is, I would say, the biggest thing I want to take away from this conversation today. I hope that you can take this information as well and encourage people to get involved, to actually undermine these efforts, particularly data centers. So they will get something out of it. They'll find a way to spin it. But again, this is the biggest, in my opinion, this is the biggest vulnerability, because the more money you have, the more debt you carry. And that is the thing I think that's really important here, is for these people to be uber wealthy, they have to have uber debt. And this is where that money is. And if that debt comes to get them in the end, then it's going to definitely have that kind of long-term effect. So keep up if you're doing that. Grassroots involved, pushing for local legislation on data center, on data privacy. Keep doing that. It's really important. And I really appreciate everybody joining me and Nick today. If you want to get more information, high quality, data-driven briefs like this, make sure you go and follow me on my Substack at the Firebrand Project. If you want more, obviously, if you're here, you probably already have been watching Palantalk for some time, as we're on episode 44, which is pretty incredible. But if you haven't, make sure you follow, subscribe to Banner and Backbone. Just click that little icon up there next to the X. It's a great way to make sure you're getting notifications, as well as all the civic engagement that goes into all the things that Banner and Backbone does, all of Nick's hard work there. I'll be putting out an article today at 5 p.m. talking about how NATO is going to be as the United States scales back its involvement, and what that means for the future of Europe. So if you're interested in things like that, make sure you are subscribed there already. I don't remember if I said that. Well, it's got to rain. But that's all, folks. Thank you so much for joining me for Palantalk, where we talk tech, no fascism. I will see you all Monday, and take care of yourselves. Remember, we can all push back together. We need to keep it up in solidarity, my friends, and we will talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.
Give me one.